welcome to Procurement Pivots, the podcast for procurement professionals wanting to navigate change successfully and create career success on your own terms. I'm Donna Bowden, procurement career coach and founder of Narrate Your Career.
And I'm Laura Sellers, executive coach for procurement and founder of Coaching for Procurement. And between us, we bring almost 25 years of supporting and working with procurement professionals. And it's fair to say we've navigated many of our own career pivots along the way. And now we're here to help you do the same.
Each episode will share practical strategies, honest conversations, and expert insights to help you confidently tackle the changes and challenges in your procurement career.
Let's get started.
Hi, everyone. Lovely to have you here with us again. Hi, Laura.
Hi, great to see you again.
You too. How are you?
Yeah, good. Excited. We are on the path to doing more episodes, which is great.
Absolutely. So today, everyone, we are going to be talking about visibility. We both find with the clients that are coming to us that this is one of the recurring topics that comes up very, very frequently. And we know that we're living in a world today where there's a lot of focus on our online presence, our visibility. I think some organisations are encouraging some procurement professionals actually to really raise their profile and visibility for to help the organisation as well as themselves. So yeah, we just thought this would be a really good topic to focus on today and just delve a little bit deeper on what does it actually mean. So did you want to kind of expand further, Laura?
Yeah, and I think you make a great point. It's definitely something that comes up a lot in coaching conversations for both of us, but in different ways. And I think that's definitely something we need to highlight here and to really break down, because visibility, there isn't just one form of visibility, right? There are loads of different ways of being visible. Some feel more comfortable or natural than others. And when we are looking to make a change or increase our impact or look for a new role, it can feel quite overwhelming, this whole visibility thing. What do I need to do? Who do I need to target? What do I need to be saying, thinking, or doing? So, yeah, I think this is an opportunity today for us to really break that down, bring in some insights that we see from our coaching conversations, and maybe just give some food for thought about what that means for anybody who's listening today.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So yeah, we were talking actually before clicking record on this podcast today, and for us, as Laura said, there's just so many different ways that you can raise your profile and increase your visibility, but trying to do everything is just so overwhelming. So yeah, we were kind of just starting to look at some of the different ways that you can do that, and the different types of people that you're trying to become visible to. And everyone's situation is really different, and probably different visibility strategies are going to be necessary and impactful for different people and at very different stages in their career. So yeah, so let's break it down. Do you want to start, Laura?
Yeah, sure. Definitely break it down. There is no one size fits all approach. There is no magic wand to, oh, we're all visible in the same way. So I think the first one for me, and certainly in my coaching conversations, it's this particular element of visibility that we focus on a lot. And that's the element of internal visibility within your organization. So when people come to the coaching conversation and they've either been advised that they need to be more visible, or they're thinking that they want to have a greater impact, it might be with internal stakeholders, it might be with the executive team, and there is maybe a long-term goal within there about, well, if I can be more visible internally, this could lead to a new role. So we really work on breaking that down. And I think when it comes to internal visibility, again, who are we trying to be more visible to? What does that get us? What's the goal? So that's the first thing I would encourage anybody who's thinking about internal visibility, is exactly what are you trying to achieve from that? And is the goal yours? Because where's that feedback come from that you need to be more visible?
Yeah. And I guess in my work, like with some of the clients that I work with, it's also about that internal visibility. But I'd say with a lot of individuals, it's also about, looking at how they can raise their profile to help their chances of, of securing and being identified for potential opportunities in the future. Now, some of that might be job opportunities for some. For others, it might be, if they're thinking of setting up their own business in the future, how can they raise their profile for potential future clients that they might want to work with? For some, it might be speaking opportunities. So it's not always about just about kind of securing that next role. But yeah, I'd say the external market visibility side of things is yeah, it's a really big topic that we focus on a lot, particularly when we're talking about how to strategically position yourself for that next move. And so again, a little bit like what you've just said, Laura, I think, it's really important to actually break down, what is it you're trying to achieve? Where is it you're hoping to get to? Is it the speaking opportunities? Is it getting visibility of some of those hidden roles that no one is bringing to you and no one is talking to you about, but you keep getting told that they exist, but you don't know where they are? Is it about making that transition from mid-level roles to leadership roles? Is it about moving from the public sector to the private sector or the other way? I think it's really important to just think, who is it that you would like to become more visible to? Who is it that you want to talk to, and who is it that you're hoping to showcase your value to? We can't speak to everyone. So actually, like, really a bit like us in our businesses, it's really important that we understand who we want to help and who we know we can help, and those are the people that we're talking to when we're kind of looking at our visibility in the marketplace. So yeah, I think just breaking down the why. Why do you want to become more visible, and what is it that you actually want to be visible to those people, and who, because that will really kind of help you to build a visibility strategy for yourself, to think about, right, okay, well, if it's those groups of people and I want to message this about myself and I'd like them to think XYZ, then it enables you to really think about what that can actually look like as well.
Yeah, and I think as well, even if we're talking about internal visibility versus external visibility, I don't think it's necessarily an either or. The importance is, like you say, about understanding the why and the what for. Why do we want to do this? What do we need it to get us? How can we show up to that visibility and control it? Because there's nothing worse than being told by someone, let's just say a line manager, you need to be more visible, and not being given A, the tools to do it, or B, being expected to be visible in the way that they are, because visibility looks and feels different for everybody. And I mean, going back to like you said about our own businesses, both you and I are visible on LinkedIn. We have to as part of our business, but my word, it was uncomfortable, and it still is to a degree. But when it comes to visibility, when it comes to public speaking, for example, I studied languages at uni. Part of that was getting up and talking for 5 minutes about your daily routine in another language. So getting up and talking doesn't faze me as much as it might somebody else, but something else will faze me that doesn't faze that other person. So it's really important to break that down and make it relevant to yourself, right? Because we all have our own unique experience. And back to that either or of internal and external, if you understand the why and the what for, there's a domino effect here. You can make that work for you internally and externally.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I think it's kind of, there's so many different methods and, places these days that you can be visible. Like, we are living in this massive online world, and, clearly we were never going to talk about visibility without LinkedIn being mentioned on a call like today. But it's not just about online visibility as well. There's so many opportunities offline as well, where you can really raise your profile, And I know you've spoken, we've spoken before, Laura, haven't we, about, some just exceptional career progression that some people have kind of seen, and they're not at all active or, publicly active on LinkedIn, but yet that hasn't at all hampered their career opportunities. And yeah, I think that's the thing. There's so many ways offline that you can, raise your profile, and that still means that people are talking about you positively when you're not there, when you're not in the room. And that's essentially what, if you're raising your visibility, hopefully, you're a consideration or forefront of people's minds, when potential opportunities present themselves, or in conversation. So yeah, I think it's not just about that online. And I think for some people, again, they're being tasked with becoming more visible, and they're panicking, thinking, oh, that just means I need to do more on LinkedIn, and actually I'm not comfortable with posting all the time on LinkedIn. But it doesn't necessarily need to be an online visibility strategy.
Yeah, and like you just referred to, I was sharing with you before we came onto this, that with my email list, I'd shared that I knew of a CPO who was now a CEO. And I don't think they've ever posted on LinkedIn. I don't even know if they're on LinkedIn, to be fair. But I think it's the case of impact, career progression can happen without an online strategy and be more visible if that's not
Yeah.
your bag. And it can really happen. But going back to what you were saying about LinkedIn and visibility, there are lots of benefits to being visible. You and I have experienced that through running
Yeah.
our businesses. But also, in terms of being visible on LinkedIn, it's not just about posting. You can meaningfully engage with others through LinkedIn as a platform and still become visible without posting every day.
Yeah. And I think, a lot of the work that I'm doing with individuals is, they're coming to me because they want to successfully position themselves for the next move. For some, it's an immediate next move. For some, they're looking, as far ahead as like 18 months, 2 years down the road. They want to put the actions in place now that are going to help them with those kind of future moves. And, whilst I will never say you need to do this on LinkedIn, like actually, we're saying that you can choose to be, more visible online, you can choose to be more visible offline. But actually, there are some really great benefits. If you are thinking about external moves in the future, there can be some really, really great benefits with just being more visible, but in a way that you're comfortable with. And I think that's really important. LinkedIn can be a really emotive subject for many people, and us included at times. And we need to work out how we can effectively use the platform for what it's there for, but in a way that feels authentic and not bragging. And, if you don't want to be posting all the time, you don't need to post all the time. Like, there's other ways that you can get the right people looking at your profile without posting videos, or, posting really regularly. So yeah, I think you know, it it's important to choose which aspects of visibility are going to be most impactful for what you want, and your goals, but at the same time kind of recognize that some of those ways can make really big differences, really, really big differences, if you do kind of invest that time and effort into them.
Yeah, totally. And I think going back to what you were saying, it's about being intentional, it's about being strategic, it's about knowing the reasons behind doing something. Does it fit in with that goal that you have? And so, yeah, that's one side of things. I think another side of things is around that, when it comes to LinkedIn and showing up and being comfortable. Like, the comfort zone is something that we constantly have to push ourselves out of, because if we actually stay in our comfort zone, we can get really bored and frustrated. So there is an element of what you're comfortable with, absolutely, but there's also an element of how can I step slightly out of my comfort
Yeah.
zone without going straight into the fear zone. So if we take that public speaking opportunity, for example, the thought of standing on a stage and speaking to hundreds of other people could be way out of the comfort zone. I mean, we're
Yeah.
talking proper deep end here.
Yeah.
but in a different way, being more visible internally in the organization, or doing it in a small scale element of being visible. You know, that there are ways of doing it where it's slightly pushing you out your comfort zone.
Yeah,
It's bringing you growth, but
yeah,
it's not putting you straight in the deep end. And it's about understanding what those different steps are to you
yeah,
and knowing which ones are the ones worth taking first. Because I mean, I've been doing this for 3 years now on LinkedIn. There are still days when I go, oh, I don't know what I don't like being visible, and other days I'm quite happy. Post, off I go.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree about the comfort zone thing. I mean, yeah, I think what I was referring to is we don't want to have feel like we have to do those things that make us really fearful. Um, and there are, everyone that I've worked with so far, actually, we've been able to find their place that feels
mm,
authentic and genuine. And for some of them, they probably, they know that at some point they want to get to this point, which might be at some point I would like to feel more comfortable with doing the posts or doing the videos or commenting on other people's posts, etc. But right now, this is what I'm willing to start with. And
yeah,
and that's the thing. It's like, for some people, absolutely. It's like, do you know what? Just try it, just do it. What are you going to lose? But for other people, the right path is okay, we'll start where you can and you're willing to, and then kind of build your way up from there.
yeah,
So yeah, I think it's just kind of really working out like what is it that you most want to influence, and where is it that you want to get to, and I'd encourage everyone really just to actually take that time. Like, we talk about this a lot, don't we? I know
mm,
we've spoken about this on previous episodes. We don't have time in our busy lives these days. We're all busy. We're busy in work, we're busy outside of work. And, if we don't create the time to become more visible and think about how we want to become more visible, like, it's just one of those many things that may not happen by itself. And so it's actually just giving yourself that space to actually think about, what is it I'm hoping to achieve, going back to, the earlier comments about the why, the who, the how, and then really kind of, putting in place a small step-by-step plan that is going to help you to get to where you're hoping to get to, whether that's about the internal, the external, the online, the offline. For some of you, it might be a combination of all of those
mm,
things. Actually, do you know what? Let's look at that. And over the next few months, could I focus on one way internally to increase my visibility? Could I focus on one way externally, one way online, one way offline? Those small steps that actually incrementally start making a really big difference and start to build that momentum.
yeah, absolutely. They're all great points. I think something I like to draw a comparison with around that starting where you are, meeting our clients where we are is
Yeah,
what we do, right? And starting with what feels best for them. I always like to draw a parallel with when they first stepped into the procurement world. There was a day, their first day in a procurement environment where they knew nothing about their category, about how procurement worked, and about how it fitted into their organization. And I think it's always good to look back and go, okay, I didn't know that then, but I know it now. So we're
yeah,
always stepping out of our comfort zone, sometimes without realizing it. And the other thing I just want to draw attention to that sort of, I think, brings together all of those 4 points is um, when we're facing that challenge of becoming more visible and it feels overwhelming, we can quite often mix up that what we're doing and how we do it is not the same as changing who we are. So we tend to sometimes mix those three things together. But I think the point I'm trying to make is that when it comes to breaking down visibility, there is about what you do, there is about how you do it. But let's not forget the essence of who you are, because we're not
yeah,
asking you to change who you are. We're asking you just to enhance and
yeah.
showcase those strengths that you have.
Yeah, and I would completely agree with that. And I think actually, particularly when it comes to, some of the external, piece, it's really some of the work that I do with my clients is, getting really clear on actually what are your values, what are your passions, what are your beliefs, what's your purpose, where are you hoping to get to, and then actually it's kind of using those elements in your communication, whether that is written communication on LinkedIn or whether it's chatting to someone at a networking event or wherever that communication is. It's weaving those authentic elements that are the essence of you, and what makes you tick and what gives you energy, and and I think also it's thinking about the future you as well, not just the you today, but if actually the goal is I want to get here in 2-3 years time, it's starting to think like that version of yourself as well in your communication, so that you're attracting that opportunity as opposed to where you are right now today. So yeah, I think it's I've lost my thread. Brilliant. Yeah, it's important, I think, just to just be intentional. Like that word comes up so frequently, doesn't it? Just be really really considered with how you approach these new steps, really, and make it work for you. Don't do it because you feel you have to do it. Do it because you want to do it, and actually where it's going to lead to and why you're doing it.
Yeah, and I think what you were saying earlier around the values, the beliefs, and all those elements of who you are, we can't forget who each and every one of us are, because that's what makes us unique. Like
Yeah,
I love to always talk about how procurement are very creative. Like I thought it was just a coincidence with a couple of people I started working with that they had this creativity within them, and then I've seen it in more clients that have come that they have a lot of creative ideas. There are things that they bring to their role that's different to what others bring.
yeah.
And that's the same for everybody. We're all different. And it's about teasing out those strengths and those unique capabilities and coupling that with the actions that we take.
Yeah, absolutely. Where, I mean, with your clients, where do you see like the greatest fears are when it comes to visibility? What is it that people are most worried about, do you think, about actually becoming more visible? Sorry for putting you on the spot.
No, no, that's such a great question. I think if I was to think about the ones that I've worked with on internal visibility, which I would guess, I would say that's more my bag, when it comes to the coaching, is around their worrying that the people who are in the room that they're trying to be more visible with think they're stupid, think that they don't know what they're talking about. And so that puts them off from speaking up. There's definitely an element around whether what they've got to say is valuable. And therefore, if I stay quiet, nobody can criticize what I have to say. And I think that also happens, especially in procurement, because there's this overall perception of procurement as a function. And I feel like while we all have those internal battles, believe me, those at the C-suite have those same beliefs and limiting aspects of their thoughts and feelings. I think for procurement, it can be hard because there's that added layer of perceptions of the function. So we try to really separate that out. But that's the underlying really rock beliefs that they have, is about whether what they've got to say is valuable and if anybody else would think that what they're saying sounds stupid. What about
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably quite similar, and similar even when you look at it in an external perspective, and especially if you think external online, lots of people are coming to me wanting to raise their profile and their visibility on LinkedIn, for instance, but really deeply worry about what am I going to say? Who's going to want to read it? What happens if no one likes it, no one comments? Even worse, what happens if people disagree with me? Like I think the disagreeing publicly, if someone disagrees with you publicly or says something negatively, and I totally understand all of those worries and concerns, and we've both been there, haven't we?
Oh,
I've been using LinkedIn probably since the beginning. But I would say much more lightly in my recruitment days. I thought I was really good on LinkedIn at the time. I'd be posting, "Hi everyone, got this job if you're interested." It wasn't particularly sophisticated, but when I launched the business, that felt really exposing. Like I remember when I wrote my first article, and it was my first long form bit of content. I'd wrote these short posts previously, and I just sat there for ages and was like, this is going to go out to so many people, and it's like, it's a lot of me there as well,
Yeah.
and that did feel quite, you know, exposing, and how's it going to land? Are people going to like it or not? And you do think about those types of things. But I was always going to do it, but it was just a bit like, "Oh,
Yeah.
okay, I'll come back to it." Press send, press publish, and then come back to it. But yeah, I think those concerns, many people have those concerns.
Mm.
I remember talking to one of my first clients I started working with, actually. It's when I started the business last year, and she was so worried about, "Yeah, but what if people disagree with me? And then what will other people think? And what if I get these negative comments?" And I kind of tasked her with an exercise just to go away. And I was like, "Just have a look at the post, the people in your network that are posting, start to have a look at the types of comments and the types of reactions that they're getting." And actually, she came back and she was so surprised because, having done her research herself, she's like, "I'm not seeing any negative comments at all. Like, this is LinkedIn. It's a professional networking site. Like, yes, there are some quite polarized opinions on there, and they are intentionally trying to encourage split opinion. That's the goal of those posts. They want that kind of almost like argumentative type responses, because the algorithm is going to like it, because more people are commenting, more people are participating. But in the main, like, actually, particularly in procurement, like, I think people are really quite supportive, and it's very, very, very rare that I see that there are, really negative comments. I think I've had one on all of the posts that I've posted since starting. Most business days I've posted, hundreds of thousands of people have seen those posts, and I've had one negative comment. And I think that's like, hopefully, I'm not saying that's, because of what I'm posting, but hopefully that can be a bit of a reassurance for people that, we're fortunate that we all operate in procurement, and that in the main is a supportive, it's a supportive space, and people want to see you doing well generally. Um,
Yeah. I mean, I think we could dedicate a whole episode to LinkedIn, and maybe we should one day. But I
yeah,
think, I mean, I certainly have my views on it. Probably more views on this than I probably actually put out there. But I think something that really helps me, and this is probably not a good thing to say, I don't know, but I'm going to say it anyway, is that I've got used to putting something out there and not, I could really put my heart and soul into something and then nobody sees it because the
yeah,
algorithm is so
yeah,
it's so out of our control. Yes, there are hooks. Yes, there are things. There are ways to show up for the algorithm, but we are not in control of that algorithm. And I think we could actually make a comparison between that and other elements of procurement, and about the
yeah,
way that when we put ourselves out there for visibility, we don't guarantee that everybody sees it, because everybody's got their own filters going on throughout the world. We can't control how our stakeholders show up to work
yeah,
that day. We don't know what morning they've had before they come to work. We don't know what's going on
yeah,
outside of work in their world. And that's the way I sort of treat the LinkedIn
yeah,
algorithm, is that I focus on showing up consistently in a way that feels right to me. And I
yeah,
trust that the right people will connect with it. The people who need to connect with it will. And I've not always felt that way. Sometimes it's incredibly
yeah,
frustrating when you're showing up and you feel that it's not having the impact. But I just think, why worry about something that's actually out of my control? I can
yeah. No,
control on how I show up.
yeah, I totally agree. And I feel the same. I want to write content for the people that I want to work with. And many of those people, they're never going to like or comment, because they're in a job and they're worried about, "Well, what if my boss sees that I've just liked a career coach's post?
Oh,
Like, are they, like,
totally.
people worry about that all of the time." So
Mm.
yeah, I totally get, I think both of us actually, we write for for who we want to write for. Not
Mm.
We're not writing for the algorithm. And probably if we did write for the algorithm, we'd get loads more response and loads more traction. But we're writing, what we want to write for the people that we want to write it for. But I'd say also, like in your career, not about if you've got a business, but you just don't know who's watching and you don't know
No.
who's looking. And that, whilst that can be scary for some people, that
Mm.
can be incredibly positive for a lot of people. And just because, it's not about, vanity metrics are, I want all the likes, I want all the shares. And yes, it's great to share yourself with more people, but do think about who those right people are. And actually,
Mm.
the right people can be watching you quietly. The potential future boss, the potential clients that you might want to work with in the future, those, speaking opportunity, like event organizers, sometimes they're watching and they're looking quietly. And we both have it, don't we, a lot?
Mm.
Like out of the blue, this person pops up, they're like, I've been watching your stuff for a long
Yeah.
time. And then they pop up and like actually, yeah, just it can be just such an incredibly helpful way of communicating whatever it is you want to communicate with the right types of people. That years ago we didn't have this as an option, did we? Really it was much more old school. And if you want to communicate with these people, you need to pick up the phone and you need to get through switchboard and try and talk to them. But now, like, we've got this opportunity where we can we can become visible really to whoever we want,
Yeah,
really.
yeah, absolutely. And you've made some great points there. And I share that sentiment of what you've said about the majority of the people who reach out to you don't actually engage with your stuff. That is absolutely the same for me. And I mean, they do occasionally, but I think it's just that thing about when you post or if you're being visible, it's got to be true to who you are.
Yeah,
And therefore, those that you attract and those who are watching are of that same mindset. You're probably a good
yeah,
fit in terms of working together if you're thinking
yeah,
from a job perspective. And and I would say, and you touched on it earlier on in the conversation around when people are playing to the algorithm, and there's nothing wrong with that. Let me say, there's no judgment
yeah,
here. We're all different. We all show up and we all express
yeah.
ourselves differently. But what I would say is that if I was to put a really controversial headline on a post, more people would see it. But I also think that we don't know what space someone who's watching is in. So I'm also always really mindful of, I don't want to create controversy for the sake of it because I don't know how that person's feeling on the other side.
Mm,
So, like I said, there's loads we could go into there with LinkedIn on its own,
yeah,
right? But at the end of the day, it's part of our visibility strategy that we have as
yeah,
business owners, right?
yeah, absolutely. So, in conclusion, then, I
Yeah.
guess, so we've spoken about the fact that we know that there is this pressure, sometimes internalized pressure, sometimes it's external pressure to become visible, and that can feel really overwhelming at times. Where do you begin? So, our advice is just, break it down and think about, you know, where would you like to have a bit more visibility in your working life, and how are you going to start doing that? So is it about the internal, the external, the online, the offline? Is it a combination of some of those? Is it just one? But just be kind to yourself and break it down, and start small, and those small consistent changes can really make a massive, massive difference, a massive, massive difference.
Absolutely. It's that what you were saying earlier, it's about the what, the why, the wherefore, and being able to break down those elements can reduce the overwhelm. And you just start
Yeah,
on that, what's that analogy about how do you eat an elephant? You start with one piece at a time, it's
I don't think I've heard that one
you've not
before.
heard that one. Is that a
No,
northern thing?
I don't think I have. I feel like I've heard the like one piece at a time, but not the how do you eat an elephant?
Yeah.
Random.
Oh my word. I'm gonna Google where that came from because I'm pretty sure I've heard it. Maybe it's a northern thing, or maybe I've just made it up. Who knows? But
Brilliant. Okay, well,
yeah,
look, thank you everyone for joining us again.
yes.
We're really pleased that you're following us on this journey, this visibility journey as well,
Yeah.
I guess, for us. So we're also learning, but yeah, really great to have you here, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Yeah, see you then. Take care.
See you later. Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Procurement Pivots. We hope today's episode gave you actionable tips to help you to continue to move forward in your procurement career.
If you enjoyed the conversation, follow our episodes, share them with others, and please support us on our social media channels for others that might be interested to tune in.